Should I be normalizing my audio? I see that question asked a lot, and I think it's a really important one because it totally depends on how you're working and where you might use normalization in your workflow. So today I want to talk about normalization, what it is, what it does, when you might want to use it, and why you might not. Before we get started, if you like these videos and you want to support my channel, head over to alexknickerbocker.com. I've got a PayPal donation link as well as a bunch of sound effects libraries that I'm curating from my own personal collection for your royalty-free use. They've got industry standard metadata and documentation so you can find what you're looking for easily, and I'll be adding more when I can, so don't forget to check back. Okay, so first things first, what is normalizing audio? Normalizing adjusts the loudness of an individual file or a selection of audio to be a particular level that you set. So this could be anything from an individual sound effect to the entire soundtrack of your project. Usually you'll see two controls when it comes to normalization. Those are the level that you want to set your audio to, which is measured in dB, and then how you want that measurement to be taken, which is usually either peak or RMS. When you use peak normalization, you're telling your software to look for the loudest part of the audio that you've selected and adjust levels based on that. So it's really good for keeping audio from clipping, but also really useful for if you have things like gunshots or punches or anything with a really hard transient that kind of decays quickly, getting those all leveled to something similar to each other so you maintain consistency. But peak normalization is definitely not good for things like backgrounds or ambiances where it's sort of a longer file, it's meant to be sort of washy and just kind of sit behind dialogue or music. Those types of sounds don't have transients, so you want to use RMS measurement, which takes the selection that you've made and it averages the level across the entire file and adjusts a level based on that. Now, this is where things get a little complicated. Normalizing can be helpful when it's used sparingly, but it can really screw things up if you're not careful or you use it in the wrong spot, so you always want to make sure that you're applying these techniques in the right places. For example, I wouldn't recommend normalizing dialogue. Dialogue is supposed to sound really nice and smooth and consistent, and the noise floor, kind of the background noise that's married into dialogue recordings, needs to be at the same consistent level. It can't jump in any particular way. So normalizing can be a really quick way to screw up that balance and draw attention to any edits that you do. Also, whenever I'm editing sounds, I'm always adjusting levels and balances as I go, and especially when I start mixing and getting into the fine details, normalizing doesn't really give me anything that I'm not already doing, and I'd prefer to maintain all that manual control anyway. Honestly, the only time I'm really normalizing anything is at the very beginning of my workflow before I've even started cutting, and I'm only normalizing my sound effects to be at particular consistent levels so that I'm at a better starting point once I begin cutting. So the bottom line for me personally is if you're going to use normalization, I'd recommend using it at the very beginning of your workflow on just sound effects to get you a better starting point with your individual levels, or at the very tail end of your workflow to keep your whole soundtrack from clipping. And of course, you should always be mindful of what kind of audio you're normalizing. If you're working with a bunch of impacts that you want to make more consistent, use peak normalization. If you've got a bunch of ambiances or background tracks that you want to layer underneath dialogue, maybe it would be better to use RMS normalization because those are generally longer files and you're making more average adjustments than you are individual moments. Or if you're trying to keep your final audio deliverables from clipping, use peak normalization so that you're just lowering your audio enough that it doesn't clip any of your internal busing and you can deliver audio that's not distorted. Now, obviously the last question is how loud should your audio be? And that's really more of a creative question. There's no right or wrong answer to it because it's so subjective. So hopefully by understanding normalization, you'll be able to better answer that creative question once you get to it. If you liked the video, comment below with any questions, hit like, hit subscribe. I'm over on Instagram at AXK, so come follow me over there. And as always, thanks for watching.